Welcome to Foxhole Symphony, a podcast about the transformational value of men in authentic community.
In our Foxhole, men are equipped to build relationships that foster belonging, accountability, and growth.
Stop believing the lie that you can thrive in isolation and instead
join us on the journey from broken to whole. Hey everybody, welcome back to Foxhole Symphony podcast, where we equip and encourage men to build authentic relationships that foster belonging, accountability, and growth. I'm Sarge here in the Foxhole studio with my co-host Mark, and glad to be with him today. We're going to be discussing love.
Yeah.
In fact, the title of this episode is Just Love Them. So we'll get into that. But before we get started, if you've been impacted by Foxhole Symphony, would you please consider helping us continue to get the word out to others? There's really three main ways that you can do this. First, send one of our episodes to some men in your life via text or email and just ask them to listen. Maybe use it as an opener to engage in discussion on a particular topic we've discussed. Second, follow our social media accounts and engage with us there. We love hearing from our listeners, and we'll include your comments and questions in an upcoming listener feedback segment of the podcast, which we're excited about and you'll be hearing more about. Third, share our social media posts or our website or the podcast link on your go-to social media pages. So would you consider one or all of these and help us simply reach more men with the hope of impacting just one at a time? We believe that one slight shift in the heart of one man can cause ripples for eternity. We talk about those ripples all the time. So Thank you for listening and for advocating for our message of hope. Mark, it's great to be with you again today, man.
You too, bro. You too. How's the rocket doing?
Doing really well. Really well. Yeah. I'm as I've said, these last few episodes vacillating between exhaustion and just, the pure adrenaline rush and ride of just the goings on in my life.
Sure. And well, look, I don't think we'd have it any other way, but it is, it is good commentary. It's like, how the hell do I keep going at this pace?
That's right. Exactly.
I don't know why, but I was just imagining, do you remember when I just said rocket? I was just thinking of Raghib, the Rocket Ismail, played for Notre Dame. Do you remember him?
Oh my gosh, like vaguely.
Really?
Yeah, as you said the name, I mean a little bit, but
yeah. So this is just one of the fastest humans on the planet.
Yes.
And he ran a 4.1 or something like that. And for a short time in the world, he was that guy you turned on every Saturday morning
just to see. Yeah,
because he did something, either a punt return or a kick return.
Right. You'd watch him return
and was gone. And then NFL players hit him, and that was it. The party was over because he was about 4'7". Right. Nonetheless, that speed and the excitement that I remember watching with my dad is probably, it could have been 70s, but I'm guessing it was early 80s. But nonetheless,
yeah, I think it was 80s. Yeah, I think it was 80s.
But just reminds me of kind of the pace you go at. is what I'm thinking of. That's the connected dots.
Of course, my legs don't take me nearly that fast. But
no, it's okay though. But in your own way.
But all up here. Yeah, it's all up here.
The wheels are turning, as Sarge points to his head. So just love them. Are you ready to deep dive this?
I am so unready and ready at the same time.
Perfect. Well,
let's see where it goes.
And folks, listeners, often we come to you with these where one or the other of us have something that God has touched us with, or something in our life. There's a catalyst that's put this on our heart, and we come to you. And I know both of us feel really strongly about this topic. Yeah. But it's very complex, ambiguous, messy topic. Just love them.
And so simple.
Oh, incredible.
So simple.
Just love them.
I mean, it just simplifies everything.
Here's how I would describe what we're hoping to talk about is, how do you love hard to love people?
Yeah.
That's really it. And as believers in Matthew 22, it's very clear, right? The greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Number 1A is love your neighbor as yourself. Simple, right?
Yeah. No. Yes. Very simple.
Right.
Not so easy.
And I jokingly said a few minutes ago, it sounds like a bumper sticker. It reminds me of bumper sticker faith, where love your neighbor as yourself. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course. And the easy to love are the people that love you, or the people that think like me. I'm going to stop saying you, I'll say me. People who think like me, act like me, walk like me, talk like me, easy to love.
Yeah.
they believe what I believe, not so much of a problem.
Yep.
But that's not that long a list when I think about it, of all the people in the world.
Yeah.
You know, I need to get a shout out of the way. Bob Goff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Bob, listen up, bud. This is all about you. We'll be talking. There's a question in a book Bob wrote. It says, "Who should I love and for how long?" And his simple answer is everybody, always.
Yeah.
And then he wrote a book about that 3 or 4 years ago. Changed my life.
Yes.
Everybody, always.
Yeah.
And again, simple. Who should I love and for how long? Everybody, always.
Yeah.
Well, let's start.
Yeah, a lot of layers there, man. I
Holy
mean,
cow.
and so, one aspect is certainly loving the, quote, unlovable in our lives.
Yeah.
And yet where I'm drawn to, before we even get there, like what I love about this, I just hear Jesus saying, just love him. Just love him. And when I hear Jesus saying that,
Good tone, by the way.
it's pretty sure that's exactly what Jesus sounds like. It's when I'm at a crossroads, right? Or I'm struggling with having to have a hard conversation. I mean, maybe it's at home, maybe it's at work. And so what I want to do is just start maybe with the listeners and ask our listeners to identify your roles. Start by identifying your roles, right? Your role as a parent, as a coworker, as a friend, as a neighbor, as a son, a father, an uncle, a boss, a husband, a leader.
Sure.
Identify all those roles and allow that to be the filter through which you see, or the lens through which you see this topic, and hear these words of Jesus saying, just love them, right? Because the roles identify the people that may just need that love. So, and of course, it's highly relational. It's in, at least the way I'm seeing this, is highly relational. It's in the relationships that I need to be reminded, day in, day out, moment by moment, just love them, right? And so it is not just an answer; it's the answer. It is the answer in my mind. In my opinion, it is the answer to so many things. It is the gospel. It is evangelism. It is how you manage conflict. It is, how you have hard conversations, how you approach relationships. It all mixed up into one. It just, I don't think it's an oversimplification. I think that's exactly what it is we're called to.
Couldn't agree more. Asking our listeners to think about their different roles. See, for me, right away, what that does is my list all of a sudden goes bing.
Yeah, right.
As a dad, my dad role, my unlovables are, like my hard to loves are. And by the way, I need to just back up half a step, because for anyone listening and for our conversation, you talk about loving the unlovable.
Yeah.
The unlovables don't think they're unlovable. Right, that's our description of them.
I know, I don't.
Right, right. So just to be clear, that we don't have time, nor am I smart enough to go into that more deeply. But we're talking about people that are hard for me to love.
Sure.
Not loving the unlovable. No one walks around with that tattoo, right?
Right.
So that everybody knows, treat them differently.
Right.
This is as much as it is for me.
Yeah.
There are people out there who find me unlovable. I'm certain of it.
Yeah.
So this is, self-improvement 101 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And again, there's this aspect of the unlovable in our lives and what they do to us, or how they affect us, how they impact us. Right. And when we're affected, when we're twisted up, angry, bitter, resentful, when that is the result, well, there's something in us. There's something in our heart, right, that God's bringing front and center right to our face like a mirror, saying, why is it? What is it? It's not about the other person. It's what's going on in my heart. Why is it that this person, or what they've said, or what they've done, or how they behave, or whatever it is, impacts my heart in this way so deeply? Like what grain of sand on this beach can I own? right? And so that's the one lens through which we can see this. And then the other one is, okay, if it doesn't totally throw us off, they may still be hard for us to love, and what's it look like to do that?
Sure. I remember reading, it's so funny you said mirror. I'm going to get this right. God never looked in your mirror and wished he saw someone else. Right? That what's happening with you there, that feeling, that grain of sand you want to own, God is showing that to you for a really good reason, and you can avoid it.
Yes.
And we have in 20 previous episodes talked about some of the things men do to avoid that, right? Run to that cave, be a little apathetic, go have a drink.
Very well, mind you.
Yeah.
Get fairly adept at that.
Right. So we are not going to talk about the avoidance part of this, or we don't have enough time, or again, I just there are parts of this I feel like are so out of my league. I feel out of my comfort zone totally here, but I know that there's what's often simple isn't easy, and Bob says what's easy doesn't last.
Yeah.
Okay. I can get my brain around that because I know I need to dedicate myself to this. I know that for me personally, part of my faith journey that I'm at now, that I need to look at this more closely and carefully and see what is God really trying to tell me here.
Yeah.
Because I know that I've tried this before.
Yeah.
I have the people that leap to my mind that are hardest for me to love today. I've tried to love all of them.
Yeah.
Overtly, covertly, overtly. I've emphatically tried to, and it has blown up.
Yeah. Blown up.
So what I do? Unlovable. Right? Well, I did. I grumble and more than that, but turn them off. That is my permission.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden I have credentials. I'm like, well, I tried.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? Disclaimer. Can't be done on our own, right? Can't be done on our own strength. I mean, in order to really do this well, and this is just stating the obvious, but it can't be done on our own, right? It's the Spirit in us. It is with God, that we are even able to approach this topic, let alone, approach people and really love them well. And it's interesting. I mean, me, like I'm immersed in, and my career has become one that is very much about organizational culture and change management. And it's interesting to me because, years ago, I was so conflict avoidant. I mean, I don't know that there was a human on earth that was more fearful of conflict.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
When was this?
I mean, anytime prior to, I don't know, 8 years ago.
Really?
10 years ago.
I would not have thought that about you.
Yes. And so,
how about that?
And I can't pinpoint as to how and when that changed. I think it was a lot of the tools that, just and healing through, the Mark Men for Christ ministry and others. I mean, that was certainly what God used as a catalyst, but it's hard to even remember that.
Okay.
Because now
it's not you.
I thrive in it. I mean, I invite it. I mine for it every day, and I encourage other leaders to do that. And the reason is there's so much opportunity there. There's so much opportunity for heart change, life change, transformation in myself as well as in others, and just teaching others how to do that well. And that's when I hear Jesus saying, just love them. Just love them, because it takes this highly complex matter relationally, and it just dumbs it down. It simplifies it to truly, I don't have to be defensive, fight my battle, figure out how to win it, right? Like come, not that you don't come to these conversations prepared, but there's as much, if not more, heart preparation needed than there is intellectual preparation. Like forget the argument that you need to win, put that aside and just love them. And the walls come down, right? as we, make ourselves vulnerable, model humility and transparency and just get to the real heart of the matter. And so anywhere there's potential conflict, or we're dealing with conflict, or having to have a hard conversation, whether it be at home or at work, maybe it's firing somebody. I used to literally, I mean, we talked about this in a prior episode about, vomiting in the waste recycle. Now, it's not fun, but there's opportunity there. There's opportunity to fire somebody well and really love them through that. And so every single one of these is an opportunity. And as you practice this, I mean, truly, right? We get better at it. And, the Holy Spirit works in us and through us as we do it. And it's how I begin to really approach all of these different aspects of relationship.
Wow. You did, so many wheels are turning. I don't invite conflict, but I'm confident there. And unfortunately, that doesn't turn out well ultimately, because I'm always right. Ask Maria. And also just I'm just trying to think it through the steps. I couldn't agree more about firing well and handling that with grace. That, and I think you're right. There's so much room there. You have to completely take out of the equation how the other person receives it, though. That's part of this. Just love them. You don't know what you're going to get back.
Yeah.
You hope you get grace back. You hope the walls come down. But they don't always come down.
But here's the thing. That's okay.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's not my burden to bear.
Right.
That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to love them.
Right.
What happens next? That's God's work. Right? What they do with that, or that person's, whether there's any heart change, whether it's received well, whether all of that, it's so freeing to be able to release that to God. Where it really gets messy and difficult and challenging is when I'm trying to own the result.
Right.
That's when it gets difficult, or I need something from it. Now it's all self-centered.
Sure.
It's not, I'm loving them. Am I really, or am I just trying to get something? This is where the whole thing breaks down. It requires surrender, dying to self, giving up what I really want, and just love them. Just love them. Everything else needs to fall away.
Yeah. I think you hit, this, but you hit on the $64,000 question and answer is God's role in this and ours. Just love them. It sounds simple, right? Your role in this sounds pretty damn simple. My role, love them. Let God handle the rest. We talked about surrendering that.
Yeah, so freeing.
Right. Well, you've now talked about transparency, humility. I have a recipe.
Oh, of course you do.
Would you like to hear it?
Of course you do.
I do.
Of course there's a recipe.
Right. There's a recipe.
Give it to me.
It's called Becoming Love.
Okay.
A simple recipe for becoming love. Because that's what we're called. Become love.
Hit me.
It's an ounce of faith. It's a tablespoon of humility, a teaspoon of transparency, and a teaspoon of fearlessness, and a half a pound of action. You've actually got to do something as part of this, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the recipe includes something you're not allowed to put in. You can't add this because, with recipes, sometimes you're like, just a little more garlic.
Right.
Because there's never enough garlic, right?
True.
Okay. You can't add the applause. Throw out the applause. Very often, when I try to own the result, you said it. That's my sin in this, is that if I know something's good for somebody and I feel like I'm loving them and I'm driving them to a place they need to be, where I want to take them.
Yeah.
Self-centered, bad. But it's like, excellent work, Mark. Well done.
Yeah.
My goal orientation takes over so fast, Sarge.
Yeah.
And then it crumbles. Ultimately, it's not a releasing it to God. It's releasing it to Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, isn't really love to begin with, right? And so, I love the recipe.
Yeah.
That's great. A half a pound of action. That's a lot.
It is. And I'd like to
A little
note,
overpowering.
I'd like to note the recipe is got 4 things in it.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest cakes to bake.
So you said forgetting the measures: faith, transparency, fearlessness, humility, and action.
5. Sorry, there's 5 things in there.
Yeah.
It is one of the, you know how some recipes, when you're done, the kitchen looks like a tornado hit it?
Yeah.
I think this is one of those.
Yeah.
This is one of the messiest, most uncomfortable, ambiguous, hard
can we
recipes.
Can we sprinkle it? Can we sprinkle it with a 6th ingredient?
Sure.
Sprinkled with grace.
Absolutely.
Just sprinkled with grace.
I have a feeling there's a lot of things we could add to have the cake come out any way you want.
Listen, I grew up in a family where, and I currently am married to a beautiful woman who I like to follow recipes. You know, I cook. I love to cook, and I stick to the recipe. I stick. So my
you
wife
don't do the hand measures.
My wife does not. She is not. She's like, I mean, there's like a general idea of what goes in, but as far as how much, like it's just all, you know. And so she's always
she's
watching
more like
me.
Emerald.
And
Bam.
Totally. And she kind of just lovingly shakes her head and looks at me like, it doesn't really make a difference. Just you just throw it in. You don't. It's not.
That's not a level teaspoon.
Right. Or like, you know, a tablespoon of like an herb. Right. Like, let's say basil. A tablespoon of basil. Well, is it packed or is it fluffy? Like, how do you get a tablespoon of fresh basil? Like, what's the proper? And I agonize over. I'm like, it's got to be just the right amount. And And of course, as an Italian woman, she's like, no, more is better. You know, just
basil,
basil,
garlic, salt.
right? Tablespoon or 10. Just
what can you not have enough of?
Anyway,
garlic. Basil,
so
salt.
Same with grace.
Yes,
it's just throw it in.
I was going to say, and I think that we are called to love, right? Become love.
Yeah.
Right. That it should be a limitless love as a believer and a follower of Christ. Then we say, you know, we're called to love everybody as much as we love ourselves.
Yeah.
That is a high bar.
Yeah.
High bar. Hopefully some people who are listening are thinking, I know who these people are in my life. Right. That should have popped into your head. And you brought up so many good points, so many thoughtful ideas about what to do with it. Actually, you know, just talking about the specific example of letting somebody go at work.
Yeah.
You know, which could change their lives.
Well, that's
dramatically.
Yes. And could be painful, but could also be a gift.
And
right. And so how we do that, what we communicate, if we really want what's best for them, and you know, therein lies the challenge, right? So, I mean, getting out of work and maybe coming a little closer to home as we look at our family or, you know, a child. And let me just remind everybody that God disciplines those he loves. So this doesn't mean we can't, you know, discipline our children or, you know, that there's no boundaries. That's not what I'm saying. But I would propose that the level of difficulty it is to love someone is directly related to the impact that person has had on our lives or could have on our lives, right? So, you know, again, if this is sort of a distant, I don't really know, like, you know, and I have to be able to see that clearly. You know, right now we're in a politically charged climate, right? And just our whole culture is so, I think, charged, right? Overcharged. And I can quickly get very frustrated and some, you know, people that I don't know could become very unlovable to me because I have this idea that, you know, their lives are impacting mine in a certain way, right? Well, first I have to really be able to see that clearly and accurately, truthfully. Like
hard to do on your own, by the way.
Amen. Yeah. The need for authentic community and yes, to help us see that honestly and right and truly. But then, you know, there's so am I seeing it clearly, and to what extent am I willing to let go of it? Now, maybe it's a past hurt, right? Jason, you know, Romano talked about forgiveness.
Yep.
You know, and his relationship with his dad. And so maybe it's something that was done to us. It had impacted us and left a wound. What's needed there, right? Do I need forgiveness in my heart for myself, for others? Is it currently impacting my life, making my life difficult, right, in one form or fashion, or hurtful, or wounding, or what's
Sure.
going on? And so, and when that's happening, and it's boom, 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 day after day, and maybe it's in our own home, man, that's a whole nother
Sure.
level of difficulty. Just loving them, right? Or maybe it's a wake that's going to be left. So again, looking at a situation at work where, let them stay or let them go. And either way, it's going to impact those left behind. It's going to impact my team.
Sure.
Right? It's going to make my life more difficult. It's difficult with them here. It's going to make it temporarily more difficult if they're not here. Right? So there's these levels of past, present, future. And so, but all that to say, I'm just proposing that the level of difficulty it is to love them, I think, is directly related to how we're impacted because we're egotistical.
That's proportional. Yep. Yeah. Wow. So much food there. I have the hard to love people in my life. Some of them live in my house. Mm-hmm. Some live next door. Mm-hmm. Some I have to engage at work. Now, I'm going to take the work one, for example. As leaders at work, we often have the power to make adjustments to who works there, right?
Yeah.
You can say, you go. Or you can make a strong recommendation, or you fire someone yourself. Oftentimes, in my instance, I do not have that power in this instance. With someone who's very hard for me to love at work,
yeah,
I can't change that. I have to admit to you, I've prayed for other leaders to reassign them. That could be in the company or out of the company, right? That will ease that tension you're talking about, where it's in my face, present, past, future. That's very different. I'll contrast that to stress I have in my home, where it's with me all day, every day. It walks around with me. It follows me.
Yeah,
it's here, and I react totally differently. I have a lot of power there, yet none.
Yeah,
right. This is my family.
Yeah,
right. You can't fire them.
Yeah.
I didn't get to pick that one. My neighbor, I could avoid completely, right? I can just be the neighbor. I live in the woods. I don't have to see him. I mean, in the summer, because the trees, the leaves, I can't even see his house. But I know I'm called. I'm actually called to go there, literally, to find where there's hurt, where there's people that need to be loved. My role in it doesn't matter at all. The three I'm mentioning are mine.
Yeah.
They're Mark-centered. But the love that Matthew is talking about in Matthew 22 and the love your neighbor does mean your next door neighbor, but it means everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody always means everybody. It actually, I believe, means seeking people out to love.
Yeah.
Where love is missing. And that's one heck of a recipe.
It sure is. So what wells up in you, and I'm putting you on the spot, and I hadn't, thought of this question till now, but maybe another way to put it is what gets in the way. And because I've been talking about sort of, we get in the way, right? I myself get in the way of being able to effectively just love someone. But what is it in me? Right? So like what wells up when I'm in that situation, when you're in that situation where it's a situation you can't change? What is it that initiates or engages, that twists you up, that makes it hard to love? Is it is there a wound? Is there a need for, like, is there something that comes to mind for you?
Wounds, more than not. The people I'm talking about now, at home and neighbor, are wounds.
Like a past wound, you mean? Okay.
Yeah.
So
especially after trying to love and it blowing up.
Okay.
Getting thrown in my face, anger, vitriol, pain, suffering, angry words, just taking shots and not reacting.
So feeling like you need to protect yourself from getting wounded again.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
That I'm unfortunately still at the phase in some of these. I have some successful love adventures in terms of saying I did this and it turned out well.
Yeah.
Which I'm all about, right? Get it done. Let's
Results,
see
baby.
See what the results. And I still think of some of these relationships I have as, since I've been wounded
Yeah.
and done the right thing, I've stood tall, right? And said, okay, I'm not going to react with similar anger and vitriol. I'm going to take the high road and it's blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it again and again. I don't want it to blow up again on me. So I just take this apathetic neutral.
Yep.
Is where I stay.
Yeah. This the layer of protection called apathy.
Yeah. Right. And
build a wall.
And it's like, yeah, I love them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah.
But if they're over there, I have found they're easier to love. I'm holding my arm as far away from my body.
So out of your list of ingredients,
yeah,
which is the one of the 5 that's the most challenging to find in the cupboard?
Humility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Action's not hard.
Yeah. Right.
I'm as transparent. I'm
Yep.
pants down. I think I have the faith portion.
Yeah.
But the humility part is really self-centeredness isn't in there because it wouldn't be a good part of the cake. It would taste really bitter. It would be like having the beets. I think humility for me is a constant battle. Pride, humility, tough. Yeah. Tough for me to stand up in front of someone who's wounded me and say, God, turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
Not very good at that.
Yeah. Mine's fearlessness. That's the one that really stopped. How much fearlessness is required again?
Teaspoon.
Oh, thank God.
It was fearlessness and transparency.
Yeah.
We're both teaspoons.
Okay. Yeah. And again, transparency is not a problem for me. Right. In fact, I should probably be a little less transparent at times, but the fearlessness, and I was able to identify that by thinking, it's fear. For me, when it's hard to love, it's typically based in fear. Fear of the result, fear of the unknown, fear of, I mean, a lot of what you said, but mine's just, fear of a potential future pain, fear of the result it could have on others around me, fear of creating more problems or more work or more, right? Like all of this. So yeah, that's the part for me that I need to surrender to God.
And I'm with you. I'm not saying that's not a part of it, but when you were just talking, I had a chance to just check. It's not fear for me as much. I'm excited about what God might do with it, but often don't take more steps. Yet, I can tell you here, the relationship I have with one of my sons requires me to humble myself to an extent that I'm almost embarrassed to admit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
But I do it.
Yeah.
I don't do it all the time. I don't do it right all the time, but I do it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that my surrender of that to God will be something he works out. I just have to warm up to it.
Sure.
It just doesn't, it's not like,
well, and here's the thing.
Not happening.
I think, the reason for the question is, what is it we need from God? I mean, ultimately, what is it we need? So listeners, what is it you need as you look at the recipe to just love him? What is it you need? Ask God. He says he's faithful to give you what it is you need, right?
No, I love that question because very often, you touched on authentic community a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Very often we ask God for an answer and what he sends us is a friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not mine, by the way. That's somewhere. I know I read that somewhere, but I know that's very true. And it's true in my life. I can tell you it's that I've decided to surround myself with voices I can trust.
Mm-hmm.
Makes all the difference in the world. I mean, let's be honest. All the things I'm talking about here somewhat abstractly today, I talk to you about.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk to Mo or Bo about, my guys. And this is where I am. This is what I need. I need someone to guide me. I need someone to say, it's okay. You haven't lost your mind. It's okay to humble yourself. It's okay to be fearless.
Yeah.
It's, you have the faith, Mark. I need someone to tell me that.
Yeah.
And I realize that's still self-centered, but part of my journey is understanding God's role in this and mine.
Yeah.
And I have my voice in my head, my look in the mirror. I haven't figured that out. So I read and learned years ago, part of my relationship with you is born from the fact that I can bring you these tough life questions, these things that sound simple, that are tremendously difficult for me to get to. And I don't know if I'll ever figure this out in my lifetime, while I'm breathing on earth, but I want to release it. I want to surrender it.
I think it is. It's the journey, man. It is the journey. It is the process. It's the process of transformation. It's these opportunities that God gives us to, 1 inch closer, right. Become more like him. And so, one day in heaven, there's a scripture, and as I was thinking about, just loving, and maybe it's not an ingredient, maybe it's the pan, maybe it's the oven temperature, but some other elements of, baking up this love, love cake here. Right. A couple of things that come to mind. I mean, one is the vine and the branches, my connectedness to Jesus, right? My connectedness to the vine is so critical, right? Like, if the oven doesn't work, there ain't no cake, right? I mean, it's just, and the pan that it's baked in, I think, is maybe the pan of obedience. Mm. And so I'm thinking of John 15. I'm thinking of John 15, and it says, John 15:9, I have loved you, even as the Father has loved me. These are Jesus' words. Remain in my love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you. There's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends, since I've told you everything the Father told me. He says, you didn't choose me, I chose you. You didn't choose me. I chose you.
Just to set the record straight.
And I appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask for using my name. This is my command. Just love them.
Just love them.
Love each other.
That fruit is, to me, you could replace it with community. You and I built this entire podcast foundationally off of is the need to explore that message you just read and its impact on our lives with other men.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
It impacts everything we do.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe it's Jesus calling us to community to address this specific topic, because there's nothing bigger. It's the greatest commandment for a reason.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
exactly.
Agreeing with Jesus is as easy as baking this cake. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
Agreeing with him.
Yeah.
I agree with everything I just heard.
Yeah. We could show up every other Thursday night for a Bob meeting, for Band of Brothers meeting, with the same exact theme and topic every other Thursday.
It's true.
And it's here's the question. Where'd you find it hard to love people in the last 2 weeks?
Right.
Go.
Yeah. And it would be full. That hour and a half.
Forget it. Every other week you could do that, right? Yeah. And it would be different, and it would be unique, and there would be opportunity for prayer and need for healing and asking God for just like again and again and again and again and again. Right. And so that's what it comes back to.
Well, first off, shout out to Bo Iwashko, and my buddy and co-leader in Band of Brothers these days. And now we have our theme for the whole year coming up.
There you go, Bo.
Season 17. Shout out to Bo.
I just cleared 26 meeting agendas. The need to prepare for 26 meetings in the next 12 months as you kick off a new season, which would be season what?
17.
Season 17 of Band of Brothers kicks off
September 1st.
Here we go.
In the basement. Or
oh my gosh.
In the backyard.
I love it.
How about that? So let's ask a important question. Are we getting closer to the end? We are.
Yeah.
We are. How do you know sometimes you look in the oven, right? In that pan of obedience, there's your love cake. How do you know if it looks good? It's kind of brown, got that brownish, beautiful, top of the bread look, when Maria bakes and she's making those loaves at Christmas time and the rolls and the pepperoni rolls. They just look right, but you don't really know.
Yeah.
How do I know if I'm doing this right? How do I know if I'm approaching this from the right perspective? I think that's a fair question someone listening might be asking.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Easy.
Tell me.
So you stick a toothpick in it and you pull it out. If nothing sticks, it's fully baked. You're good. You got
funny.
the right ingredient, right?
There you go.
And I would say, here's the answer. Just ask them. Just ask them. I forget exactly where it was or what it was related to, but I remember asking a similar question. Like, I think it had to do with my wife. Like, how do I know I'm loving my wife well? And I remember someone telling me, have you asked her? And I was like,
ding.
No,
Yeah.
That's a scary proposition.
Right. Because I don't want to hear what you might.
I don't want to hear no.
Right. Exactly. I know what I want.
I could use a little more of this ingredient, right? But that's the truth. That is the truth, man. And again,
Absolutely.
Getting back to community, asking my brothers, do you see me loving people well? Asking my coworkers, asking my boss, asking my direct reports, am I loving you well?
Right.
Like, how am I doing? Right? Asking my wife, ready for this one? My kids. Oh,
ouch. How am I doing?
Am I loving you well? I've done that. And I've apologized. We've talked about this before. I've apologized for things I haven't done well. There's going to be that. And you know what? What tremendous opportunity it is to model humility, model grace, and model love, even in our apologies. So I would say, how do you know?
How you feel about
just
that.
love them. Just ask them.
Yeah. Bob Goff's answer to that question is something like this. One way you'll know if someone is on the right love track, baking the right cake, is they're talking a lot more about what God is doing than what they are doing.
Oh. Okay. No, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And so so true. Because again, it goes back to what we were saying before. Like, am I really just about loving them, or is it about me?
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's a great barometer. That is a great barometer.
So I think that's a great place for me to stop. First of all, there's someone in my life today. I am going to ask how I can love them better. I need to do that. So thank you for that, because I wouldn't have done it without you just saying something. Secondarily, I pray for you and everybody listening that will listen for his voice in this. Hopefully we've brought some things to light that make a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
I know that you have catalyzed so much important thought in me today. So blessed by you again. And let's be listening. Let's leave with knowing that if it's less about us and more about him, just about in every area of our lives, you're right. That's as powerful a message as we've ever left on this podcast in 23 episodes.
Love it. Just love them.
Just love them, bro. Love you.
Love you.
Greetings, constant listeners. Really glad you joined us for this episode of the Foxhole Symphony podcast called Just Love 'Em. We peeled the onion back on our biblical call to love one another with a special focus on loving people we find hard to love. We agreed that it's simple but not easy. Sarge and I came up with one simple recipe to become love. Just has 6 simple ingredients: a teaspoon of transparency, an ounce of faith, a tablespoon of humility, a teaspoon of fearlessness, a half a pound of action, and we sprinkle it with grace. Like all of our listeners, to think about what's missing in your recipe to become love. Sarge and I explored how humility for Mark and fearlessness for Sarge impacted our ability to love, and we agreed that if you want to know if you're on the right track here, you'll be talking more about what God is doing than what you are doing. And remember, when all else fails, just love Him.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it and invite others to the Foxhole. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcast, Be sure to subscribe so you know when new episodes drop, and please rate us and comment there too, as it'll help us get found by others who could benefit. Find, follow, and like us on your go-to social media networks by searching Foxhole Symphony, or visit foxholesymphony.com to make it super easy to find us. Drop us a line with feedback, questions, topic requests, who knows? Maybe you'll be a guest on a future episode. In the meantime, prepare to move, embrace discomfort, and just be you.